All right, so it's all done. And there we have it. And now we're in business because we can see the pieces stop. They stop quickly. They aren't bouncing like crazy. They're skipping along the ground really nicely because again, they're these sharp edges. Even if they're not actually the edges that should be skipping on the ground, the overall movement looks great. And it rests on the ground and it sims super fast. I mean, you can see it even at its slowest over here, it was like 4 seconds a frame, even with the 40 sub steps, which we probably don't need. But why not? We can afford it. So they look good. So the only other thing we need to do now is cache it. We got to merge it back in and then cache it. So we got to get the RBD object. So we just go over to this thing here. So say RBD star, and we can see there they are. We don't want to get the ground plane and whatnot. And also just looking ahead, I'm gonna say make sure that we are only getting the active pieces points, because later on, again, we're gonna add some inactive colliders. But that looks good, and we can see they got like all the cool velocities and all that fun stuff. So I'm gonna go back over to the particle main sim area, steal that file cache particles thing here, bring it back over here, and say file cache RBDs, and we'll just call this. I'll call this RBDs LQ, although we'll probably just only end up doing an LQ because this is probably more than enough. And let's save that. And then we can take a look at that render and just to make sure that everything's still on the up and up. So there it goes. Done. Easy. Reload it. It didn't even resim it, it just saved the cache that was already in memory, this blue bar down here. So I'll drop down a null. We'll say out. I'll just choose some frame like that. So we'll get some like cool motion blur or something. So we got the particles and the RBDs now. Let's go over to the out area here. Let's get the RBDs going on. And that should be enough. Let's go over to the render view, render that, let's see what it looks like. Cool, so it's working. We've got we can click in here to focus on stuff like the other ones. I can see that the motion blur is actually not on. So I can go to here and say geometry, velocity, motion blur. Getting mad at me. There we go. Now we can see it's blurred. Cool. So it's coming together. We're getting a blast of rigids, big chunks coming out here. And actually, I guess if I turn it into HQ, we'll even see the proper particles, which will take a moment to load. But we'll deal more with the rendering a little bit later. But it's definitely coming along. There we go. Lots of particles. Now you get a real spray. And you can see how the rigids are chunks inside of that, giving it a nice chunky peanut butter texture. Great. But enough of that for now. We'll come back to that soon. Go back to main mode. There we go. Great, moving on.